Okay, stay with me though. I mean, because this is at the heart of your book. Well, that's not a democracy in your judgment, because a few are making the decisions because of the power of their money and influence.
Right. So our framers gave us what they called a republic. And what they meant by a republic was a representative democracy. And what Federalist 52 says is that a representative democracy would be a government, quote, dependent upon the people alone. Now, whatever that means, what we know is Congress has evolved a different dependency, a dependency upon the funders. And that dependency is different and conflicting with a dependency upon the people, because the funders are a tiny slice of the people. If you ask who in 2010, what percentage of Americans maxed out in a contribution in a congressional campaign, the answer is 0.05%. So, you know, Occupy Wall Street says we're the 99%. That's bad marketing. They should be saying we're the 99.95% who don't have access and influence inside the system, because we are not the 0.05% with the extraordinary power that funders in the system have. So that is a...
And it's even changed more now because of all the court ruling that allowed
independent expenditures. Absolutely. It'll be much worse. So what we've got is a democracy that is corrupted relative to what the framers intended. It's a kind of dependency corruption. And not because the congressmen are criminals. I think this is the confusion when people talk about corruption. I'm not saying that, you know, it's Rod Blagojevich throughout the whole system. I'm not saying that these are people who violate criminal laws. These are good people, decent people who go to Washington trying to do what they want, what they believe is right. But they get in a system where they can't help but be distorted as they spend 30 to 70% of their time raising money to get back to Congress.
And they're raising money, therefore they're not being effective at what they
absolutely
believe they were sent there to do.
Absolutely.
Whatever their political opinion.
Right, right.
You know, if you got to worry about getting reelected,
or get your party back in power, you can't help but be distorted. You become shapeshifters as you constantly adjust your view in light of what you do.
So how do you change the financing?
Well, you know, there are two questions. What's the right answer? And the second one is, how do we get there?
Right.
The first one's easy. You know, so I think
What's the right answer then?
So the right answer is a way of funding elections that's a small dollar system for funding elections. I describe a version of my book which is a little bit different from the ones that have been proposed. It basically says, look, all voters pay at least $50 in taxes. So let's take the first $50 you pay and rebate it to you in the form of a democracy voucher. And then you can use that voucher to give to any congressional candidate, as long as that candidate agrees to fund his or her campaign with those vouchers only and contributions of up to $100 from any citizen. Okay, so $50 a voter is $6 billion in the election cycle. That's 2.5 times the amount spent in 2010. So it's real money. And if it were a system where the majority or 70% of candidates opted into that way of funding their elections, then nobody could believe when Congress did something stupid that it was because of the money. It may have been because there are too many Democrats or too many Republicans, whatever, but it wouldn't have been the money because we had removed this fundamental source of cynicism in our system, because congressmen would be raising their money in chunks that nobody could believe would be biased.
And what chance does this have?
Under this Congress, you know, exactly zero. I looked it up on Google. I checked it. It's zero.
It's zero.
Yeah. So what we need is a movement outside of Congress to force the institution into adopting the kind of funding system that we can trust again. Because, you know, they got elected under the old system. They don't want to change it. Many of them see their life under the old system as a stepping stone to becoming lobbyists. There's a kind of farm league for K Street, as Jim Cooper from Tennessee describes it. And so they don't want to change a system where lobbyists won't be as valuable. Right.
Attractive life.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Whatever was that happened to McCain-Feingold?
So it's effectively dead. There's some parts that still survive, but you know, its strategy was different. Its strategy was to say, oh, there's certain kinds of money we don't like. Let's try to dampen it down. And that's been the strategy of reform for the past 30 years. And my view is that's just never going to be enough. You're never going to succeed by trying to silence certain kind of speech in the system. They always find a way to get their influence back in. Instead, we have to find a solution to add more speech into the system, more money into the system, but money that isn't distorted in the way that we think big money is.
So your democracy voucher.
Democracy voucher is one way. Yeah. That's right.
So what else are you working on when you try to deal with the idea of the way the American political system works?
Well, I think the hardest part of this problem right now, you know, so the first one was what's the right answer?
Right.
The second one is how do we get there? The hardest part is recognizing that people from radically different perspectives need to work together to get there. Right? So I went to K Street and I gave a teach-in at K Street. And what I said was, you know, you guys may believe in capitalism or not. I mean, I believe in capitalism, but you may or may not believe in capitalism. But nobody believes in crony capitalism. And if you would start inviting Tea Party people down to these meetings and start talking about crony capitalism, you could begin to build a movement that was across-the-board movement for reform. And this could have been scripted in Hollywood. Just then, a guy raised his hand and he said, you know, I was one of the founders of the Tea Party, and I run a website called againstcronycapitalism.com. And I can guarantee you, if you were to start talking like this, you'd have all these Tea Party people down here supporting this movement. Well, after I said that, I started getting killed in the left-wing press by people who are saying this is absolutely the wrong idea, to try to begin to talk to those, quote, racists from the right. And you know, my view was, well, wait, I'm not a mathematician, but if you say you're speaking for the 99%, and we take 100% and you remove the 30% of Americans who call themselves supporters of the Tea Party, I'm not sure how you get to 99%. But the point is, we have these business models in American life, media as well as politics, that are focused on polarization. Like, let's teach each other to hate each other. And the idea of teaching each other to talk to each other, not by giving up your views, not by compromising, but just saying we need to be able to talk to each other, is the hardest thing to begin to motivate people around. But that's the essential step to getting any kind of change at the level of
Constitution. Okay, suppose I said to you, okay, let's make this table that we're sitting at, you know, a venue for debate on the important questions that ought to be looked at in the coming presidential campaign, congressional campaign as well.
I thought that's what it was.
And it is indeed that. But tell me what the issues ought to be. That's what I'm asking.
Well, you know, at least we've also got to have another debate where we can have a political system where people actually trust the results are the product of principles as opposed to money. 75% of Americans believe money buys results in Congress. And when 75% believe money buys results in Congress, they naturally, if you're not the person with the money, stay home. They don't participate. They have enormous cynicism. It's an institution which New York Times 2 weeks ago reported has 9% confidence in America, right? 9%. There are more people who believed in the British Crown at the time of the Revolution than who believe in this Congress today. So I think we've got to recognize this institution is fundamentally bankrupt, politically bankrupt. And until we can begin to earn the respect, to restore some of the trust in the institution, we won't have a system that can call itself a government of the people.
Republic lost. How many corrupts Congress and a plan to stop it? Lawrence Lessig, thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Great to see you as always.
Great to see you.